You already know something's off, don't you? The late nights, the strange messages, the sudden coldness. But what if I told you there's a way to make her confess everything, without begging or accusing? Stick with me, and I'll reveal 6 psychological tactics that will force her to tell you the truth about the affair. These aren't your typical relationship advice tricks. They're game-changing strategies that will expose her hidden lies. But before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And tell me, what city are you watching from? Let's see how far this truth goes. Tactic 1, the reverse confession. Let's start with the first trick, one that completely flips the script. You see, most men make the mistake of begging for the truth. Tell me the truth, please. I need to know. You beg, you plead, you wait. But here's the thing. You're playing her game and she's controlling the pace. That's where the reverse confession comes in. This tactic doesn't just ask for the truth, it forces it out of her. Here's how it works. Instead of saying, "Are you hiding something from me?" or even, "Are you cheating?" you look her right in the eyes and calmly say, "Someone already told me what happened, but I want to hear your version so I know how serious it is." Notice that. You never say who told you. You don't say what they told you. You just let her mind go wild thinking, who told him? What do they know? This is where the power lies. Her brain will start racing, replaying every conversation, every possible slip-up, every moment that might have exposed her. And that's when the panic sets in. She has no idea how much you know, but she's suddenly sure that you know something. That's when she starts talking, trying to control the damage. She'll attempt to craft a version of the story that minimizes the hurt, hoping you'll buy it. Because if she confesses first, she can control what comes next. Here's the beautiful thing about the reverse confession. It isn't about catching her in a lie. It's about letting her uncover her own deceit. As she talks, she'll expose things you didn't even ask for. Maybe she mentions a detail that contradicts her previous story. Or she accidentally reveals a person's name she never should have. Maybe she starts adding too many details, trying to make the lie sound more believable. The best part, you don't interrupt, you don't get angry, you don't jump to conclusions. You just listen, calmly, stoically, and as she tries to control the narrative, she will slip up, she will contradict herself. And that's when the cracks in her story begin to show. But here's the catch. This technique is dangerous. You've got to be prepared for whatever comes out of her mouth. Are you ready to hear everything? Because the truth will come flooding out once you've applied this pressure, and sometimes it's more than you expected. But the power, it's all in your hands. You're the one forcing the confession, not begging for it. But here's a warning. Guilt isn't the worst weapon. The next tactic is even more dangerous. Tactic 2, the false detail drop. Now, let's move on to one of the most underused yet highly effective tactics, the false detail drop. Most men think they need solid proof before confronting her. They feel they need all the facts lined up, texts, emails, photos, you name it. But here's the truth. Sometimes you create the proof yourself, and it doesn't even require you to have all the details right. You just need to plant a believable lie and let her correct it. Here's how it works. Instead of accusing her directly or asking, "Are you cheating on me?" you drop a small but completely fabricated detail. For example, you casually say, "I know you were with him in his red car on Tuesday night." Now, here's the trick. You don't even know if he has a red car. You don't know if she was with him at all. But the beauty of this technique is in the reaction you get. If she's completely innocent, she'll be confused. She might say, "What are you talking about? What red car?" Or just stare at you, genuinely puzzled. That's the reaction you expect if you've got nothing to worry about. But if she's guilty, her brain immediately switches to damage control mode. She'll correct you, instinctively, almost without thinking. "What red car?" "No, it was a blue car." Bam. Right there, you've just gotten confirmation that she was indeed with someone, and that someone has a car she knows very well. Now, you've caught her in a lie. Not just about the car, but about the entire situation. Here's the psychological secret at play. A lie requires mental energy to maintain. When you drop a false detail, you're creating cognitive dissonance in her mind. She has to decide whether to stick with the lie or correct you to avoid looking completely out of touch with the details. If she corrects the false detail, she's inadvertently confirming three things. The man exists. She knows exactly what kind of car he drives. She was there, or at least involved, because she felt the need to correct the detail you fabricated. The key here is calmness. You don't argue or get defensive. You just remain totally composed. The more unfazed you are, the more pressure she'll feel to explain herself. When she starts making up an explanation, it's only a matter of time before the truth starts to slip out, because every extra word she speaks just builds the case against her. But remember, this is just the beginning. The next tactic is one you'll use when she's backed into a corner and is starting to feel the weight of the lies. Stay tuned. Tactic 3, the future consequence scenario. Let's talk about one of the most powerful psychological weapons you can wield, the future consequence scenario. This tactic doesn't rely on aggressive questioning or emotional manipulation. It works because it taps into something far deeper, fear of the unknown. Here's the key. Fear of uncertainty is almost always stronger than fear of a known punishment. Instead of pressuring her directly with accusations, you offer her a choice between two paths, one toward mercy, the other toward destruction. But here's the twist. You don't finish the sentence. You leave the consequences undefined, letting her mind fill in the blanks. It's the ultimate psychological mind game. Here's how it works. You look her in the eyes, stay calm, and say something like, "Listen, I can forgive a mistake if you tell me everything right now. But if I find out from someone else," and then stop. You don't explain what will happen if the truth comes from someone else. You don't finish the sentence. You let the silence linger in the air. And right there, you've just planted the most dangerous seed in her mind. What happens next? Her mind immediately goes into overdrive. She starts to imagine the worst-case scenarios. Will the truth come out in front of friends? Will her affair be exposed at work? Will you leave her? Or worse, will she lose everything? Her marriage, her home, her reputation. Her brain fills in the gaps with scenarios that are far worse than anything you could ever say. This is a key element of human psychology. The fear of the unknown is paralyzing. By not finishing the thought, you've triggered an intense, uncontrollable anxiety that pushes her toward one choice: to confess. She doesn't know what will happen, but she knows one thing. She wants control over the narrative before the truth spirals out of her control. The real brilliance of this technique is the small door of hope you've left open. By saying, "I can forgive a mistake," you've given her a tiny sliver of hope that she can salvage something. That hope, combined with her fear of the unknown, is an irresistible combination. She's now emotionally torn between wanting to come clean to avoid further destruction and the overwhelming fear of the chaos that might follow if the truth is exposed by someone else. This tactic doesn't rely on you to provide the consequences. Her mind does that for you. And as the fear builds, you'll find her starting to confess, not because you pushed her, but because her imagination took over and forced her hand. But here's the catch. What if I told you the next tactic doesn't even involve words at all? It's all in the silence. Stick around because the next trick will hit where it hurts. Tactic 4, the silent stare. This next tactic may just be the most underestimated of all, the silent stare. It's deceptively simple, but when used correctly, it has the power to break down even the most tightly guarded walls. You see, most men think confrontation requires questions, accusations, or emotional outbursts. They think it's all about talking, getting the truth out of her. But here's the truth. Silence is one of the most powerful tools in psychological warfare. And when used strategically, it forces her to confront her own guilt. Here's how this works. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration when you sense something's off, you do the exact opposite. You sit down across from her, lock eyes, and say nothing. Not for a few seconds, but for 30, even 60 seconds. an eternity in a tense conversation. You're probably wondering, what's the point of silence? Well, here's the deal. Women are hardwired for connection and communication. They're taught to fill the gaps in conversations, to avoid uncomfortable silences, and to maintain harmony. But when silence is paired with tension and suspicion, that's when it becomes a weapon. At first, she may try to brush it off, pretending it doesn't bother her. But the longer you hold the stare, the more the discomfort builds. The silence begins to work against her, causing her mind to race. Does he know something? Is he waiting for me to confess? Should I say something before it gets worse? That's when the guilt starts eating at her. And here's the psychological twist. Whoever breaks the silence first loses the power dynamic. The more you stay quiet and composed, the more she feels compelled to talk. She'll start to crack under the pressure of trying to maintain the lie. Her guilt starts to scream louder than any accusation you could make. Now, don't confuse this tactic with intimidation. It's not about glaring at her with anger. It's about being completely unmoved, calm, and stoic, letting her do all the talking. If she's guilty, her words will start tumbling out, revealing things she didn't want you to hear. If she's innocent, her body language will show confusion, not fear. But even then, the silence will create a psychological tension she'll struggle to break. The beauty of this technique is that it doesn't require you to say a word. All you need is patience, and eventually, she'll reveal more than she intended. But remember, silence isn't the ultimate weapon. The next tactic will take things to a whole new level. You won't believe what comes next. Stay tuned. Tactic 5. The calm accusation. Now we're moving into a technique that cuts straight to the heart of the issue, the calm accusation. This is where most men get it wrong. They think they need to shout, to accuse her angrily, to create a big scene to get the truth. But here's the thing. Emotion is her escape route. When you get angry or upset, she can easily deflect. She'll say you're being paranoid, overreacting, or that she can't talk to you when you're like this. That's why the calm accusation is so devastating. It's not about raising your voice or getting emotional. It's about being cold, certain, and completely unshaken. Here's how it works. Instead of confronting her with a barrage of accusations or dramatic questioning, you look her straight in the eye and say, "I know you're cheating." No emotion, no anger, just absolute calmness in your tone. You don't scream, you don't ask for her side of the story. You simply state it like a fact, because in your mind, it already is. Why does this work so well? It's because certainty is the ultimate pressure. Women are used to deflecting emotional outbursts. They know how to manage a scene where you're accusing them through anger, guilt, or frustration. But when you don't give her the opportunity to deflect, it completely throws her off balance. When you remain calm and unflinching, it makes her question one thing. How does he know? That simple statement of certainty forces her to face the truth head-on. You've taken away the room to argue or manipulate the situation. There's no space to claim that you're paranoid or overreacting because you're presenting the facts in such a clear, unemotional manner. The moment you do this, her defenses start to crack. She can no longer hide behind emotions or distractions. She's faced with the undeniable reality that you already know. But here's the thing. You're not trying to engage in an argument. You're not trying to get a confession on the spot. Instead, you've just pushed her into a corner where she can't lie or hide. The power shift is immediate. You control the situation, and she knows it. In fact, many men who use this tactic report something remarkable. The confession often comes not in anger, but in tears. She'll break down, not because you shouted, but because you remained calm and unshaken. You made it clear that the game was over. But trust me, this is just one of the psychological tricks you can use. The final tactic is something you won't see coming, and it's the one that forces her to confront her deepest feelings. Stick around for the next trick. Tactic 6, known facts first. This next tactic is about shifting the burden of proof, known facts first. Instead of asking vague questions like, "Are you cheating?" or "Is there someone else?" you make a specific, concrete statement that you already know. This forces her to explain the discrepancy, putting the pressure on her, not you. Here's how it works. Instead of asking, "Where were you last night?" you say, "Last night at 8 p.m., you told me you were at Sarah's house, but I know you were at that cafe near your office." Or, "I saw you talking to him outside the gym last week. You said you hadn't seen him in months." The key here is certainty. When you state a known fact, her mind assumes there's proof behind it. The focus shifts from her denying the accusation to her trying to explain why her story doesn't match up. The more you hold to your certainty, the more she will feel compelled to explain herself. If she's guilty, her reaction will be defensive, filled with contradictions. She'll try to rationalize why the facts don't align, but the more she talks, the more inconsistencies will surface. She might add extra details to cover her tracks, but that's when her lies start to unravel. Each new detail she offers opens a door for you to catch her in a contradiction. For example, she might say that Sarah was running late, and she ended up at a different cafe. But why didn't she mention that change of plans to you? The more she tries to cover the inconsistencies, the more she exposes herself. This technique works because it doesn't require you to ask anything. She does all the explaining. The more she talks, the more the truth slips out, and the more she digs her own hole. The truth isn't something you ask for. It's something you make her reveal when you know how to apply the right pressure. See you in the next video.